Today is June 2nd, 2012, and we are interviewing Jack Curry at Quincy, Illinois. Jack, for the record, can you state your age?
66.
And you were born in Adams County, Illinois. My name is Cheryl Walker, and I will be interviewing you. Jack, could you tell us what war and branch of service you served in?
Vietnam, U.S. Army.
And what was your rank?
In Vietnam, I was E4.
And where did you serve in Vietnam?
In 3 Corps, which is Saigon, north to right up to the Cambodian border.
And what was your job?
Graves registration.
And what is that?
That's like being a mortician in a combat zone.
So you saw a lot of casualties.
Yes, ma'am. Excuse me, I didn't give you one of those.
Thank you. So I'm sure you had quite a few stories that were not.
Not all that pleasant.
Yes.
That's correct, ma'am, yes.
Did you receive any awards or any medals or citations?
No, ma'am, just the National Defense Ribbon and the Vietnam Service Medal. I was fortunate enough not to get wounded, to be wounded. And no.
How did you get along with your officers and fellow soldiers?
All right. I think I did.
Did you feel, with your job, did you feel a lot of pressure and stress?
No, ma'am. I had grown up in a family mortuary business in northern Adams County, and went off to college, worked in a mortuary at Macomb for my room and board, and when I was drafted in 1967, February, excuse me, it just followed that it was a natural thing to do.
Did you keep a personal diary?
No, ma'am. I didn't.
When you were drafted, where did you first go into? Which state did you go to?
From here in Quincy, from Adams County, on 2nd of February, Groundhog Day of 1967, and went to Fort Leonard Wood, Missouri, and the Vietnam War was escalating so fast at that time. They were filled up. They loaded us on buses and took us to Fort Polk, Louisiana for basic. And from there, I went to Fort Huachuca, Arizona for advanced training in the Signal Corps, in radio school. But then when I got overseas, they read my background, my civilian occupation, and I went over into Graves at that time. Excuse me.
Were you able to stay in touch with your family?
Yes, just by snail mail. I mean, and it was a letter, even with jet aircraft in those days, took about 2 weeks round trip. We didn't have the communications that today's Army and today's military has from overseas, as far as emails and that type of thing. It's just through regular mail.
Did you carry anything special for good luck?
I guess I had a lock of hair of my wife's, and that was about it in my billfold. Yeah.
Did you have plenty of supplies?
Yes, ma'am.
What about the food? What was the food like?
Well, the food was all right. In the base camps, we had mess halls that had meals, and then also being in Graves registration, we were attached to the quartermaster battalion, and all your rations come through the quartermaster's battalion, so we had easy access or first access to C rations. That's before the day and age of what they call them now is MREs, and this was C rations, and that was okay too. We made do with it anyway. But
Is there anything you can't eat now because of those days?
well, no, I'm almost. I don't eat any red meat or pork. I do eat fish occasionally, but I don't eat any red meat or pork.
And why is that?
Well, it just turned me off while I was overseas. The way it was canned and even in this old C ration cans, canned meat is what it was. So.
Did you see any entertainers?
Yes, ma'am.
And which ones were they?
Bob Hope's show in December of '67 at the Lai K base camp. This would be about 30 miles north of Saigon. And he was there, and Raquel Welch was in that show. And I can't remember much else, but you remember Raquel Welch. So. Okay, enough of that.
So that was a good memory.
That's a good memory. And Bob Hope, they put on a good show, and that was nice. But
did you get a leave?
Yes, ma'am.
And where did you go?
Hawaii. Met my wife there in March of '68 for 6 days on R&R. At that time, it's my understanding now that the military folks can come back to the States for a week or 10 days on leave. But back then, we couldn't come back to the continental United States. Married men could go to Hawaii for 6 days, and the single guys all went to Taipei, Tokyo, Kuala Lumpur, Penang, all of those destinations in Southeast Asia or in the Pacific Rim. But so it was, excuse me, I got off track there, but so it was Hawaii.
Do you recall the day your service ended?
In Vietnam?
Mm-hmm.
Well, yes, it was the middle of July of 1968, and I just remember flying home. But
And when did you get out of the service?
I got reassigned for a short period of time down to Fort Bragg, North Carolina in the fall of '68, and got out on the 22nd of November of 1968. Isn't that how interesting how you can remember those dates and you can't remember what you did 3 days ago?
Where were you when you?
Say again, over.
Where were you when you got out?
Fort Bragg, North Carolina.
North Carolina.
Mm-hmm.
What did you do after you got out of the service?
I went back and finished college, but then I went back into the mortuary business.
Did you make any close friends?
Yes, ma'am.
Do you still stay in contact with them?
Yes, about 4 guys. We call each other 3 or 4 times a year, and Christmas time especially. And they're scattered all over the country.
Did you join any veteran organizations?
Yes, ma'am. I am a life member of the AMVETS Post 76 at Ursa, and a life member of Camp Point VFW Post 5410, and a member of the Bear Creek Legion Post at Mendon, Illinois.
How has your service and experiences affected your life?
Well, I think it has given me an opportunity to travel and to see the world and the good points in the world, and there is a lot of negative things in the world, but you make the best of those situations, and try to help the other people in the military and help the civilians and just keep moving. I guess that's the best way I can look back at it now, over 45 years later since I went in. But
Is there anything you'd like to add to this interview?
well, no. Just some people may question graves registration. Now they call it more, I think, memorial activities. And but especially, that's what war is about, is death. And to just properly secure the remains of a fallen service member and his personal effects, his or her, I should say, excuse me, and treat that individual with respect and get them evacuated to a mortuary facility in country, and then those folks get them back to the country, to this country, back home. And anyway, that I can look back now at all those years ago, and it was something that needed to be done to help the country and help unit morale and the morale of the individuals, that they knew that that attempt was being made to get their body back home. But,
Well, I thank you for your time, and I thank you for the honor that you have done our country.
well, thank you.